All right, you ready?
Yep. Are you ready?
I think so.
All right.
All right, I'm going to read this in like a very haunting voice, like a very serious voice. I'm not used to that.
Yeah, you're never serious.
All right. The following is an excerpt from Legend of the Naughty Nun, 26th July, 1984. Is that creepy enough?
It's very monotoned.
Amtil and Flitwick Times.
There you go.
A legend of a naughty nun is supposed to account for the multiple hauntings at Chicksands Priory, now part of the American Air Force Base. Actually, it's back to being an English Air Force Base.
Oh, really?
Anyways, this is from 1984. At the time, it was a nun called Berta Rosata apparently became pregnant after a love affair with a monk. This was considered to be such a heinous crime that she was walled up alive in the cellars and forced to watch her lover being beheaded before the last brick was placed. If we were like a fancy podcast, we'd have like the sound of like a brick.
Well, you can be that fancy if you'd like to.
I prefer the sound that you make of a brick being placed. Right. All right. Berta's ghost reappears on the 17th of each month whenever the moon is full. So wait a second. It's not actually on the 17th of each month.
If it falls when the moon is full. Get
so
it?
It has to be a
so
full
the
moon.
Two things have to happen. A full moon and the 17th of the month.
Okay.
That's what I'm assuming.
I wonder how, me too. I wonder how often that actually happens.
5 times.
Per what?
I don't know. Ever.
All right, so I went out of my way I paused the recording and I looked up over the past 25 years, 26 years from 1994, how many full moons that fall on the 17th are.
And there were 5.
There have been. No,
like I said.
No, incorrect. They're not 5. It happens on a relatively frequent basis. So there was one just last year in 2019.
Okay.
There were 2 in 2013. Okay. There was 1 in 2011. There was 2 in 2005.
So what are we up to, 6?
And there were 2 in 1994.
So
what was that?
That was Bama.
Oh, I thought it was a ghost.
No.
Oh, I'm freaked out, but it's just our 5-year-old. I don't know what's scarier. Like 5-year-old wants something, or if we have a ghost in the house.
Probably the 5-year-old.
Welcome to the very first episode of, what's this called?
That's Not Scary.
My name is Steve.
And my name is Lacey.
And you may or may not know us from... me from the Going in Raw Pro Wrestling podcast, from us from the YouTube Friendoville channel, where
that
we do
the longest title,
or hopefully true, or hopefully
Ask Stephen Lacey.
You've never heard of us, and this is the first time, and you're like, hey, I want to try out this ghost podcast. Yeah, I wonder what these two are like.
And they immediately shut it off.
And they're like, nope, we're good. So we might get asked the question, why are we doing a ghost podcast, Lace?
Because it's fun, and Steven never believes in anything, and he always is like, I don't believe that, you're lying. And so I'm here to disprove him. So
I'm going to be the skeptic. I'm going to be the Dana Scully, and you're going to be the Fox Mulder.
Right. You're not going to be, you are this. That's what you
Well, we'll get into that in a little bit. My thoughts on, do you thoroughly believe in ghosts?
I mean, yes, I guess. Yeah, I do.
Yes, no.
I do. I just haven't had an experience, so it's harder for me. But I love ghost stories, and I love hearing people's stories.
Yeah.
Like, when I'm hearing a ghost story from somebody telling me, like, their experience, I am so, a believer. I am so believing everything that they say, and I don't know, I really like it.
Do you believe our house is haunted?
If you ask me, no. Summer, our daughter, definitely thinks so.
So yeah, this is the way this show is going to work. This is the way we think we'd like the show to work. Every week we get your ghost stories. The people who are listening to this.
Correct.
You send in your ghost stories. Now, you can do this by emailing us at thatsnotscarypod at gmail.com.
Correct.
That's not scarypod at gmail.com. And if you want to write us and write with as much detail as possible, we'd love that. If you want to send us an audio file, we'll run it here on the show. We'd love that.
Yeah, you can have your voice on our podcast.
But we want your specific, like, individual. Don't just read something from somewhere else. Like, copy somebody else's stuff.
Or come up with it in your head. Like, I want it to be an actual experience.
Exactly. If you don't have one, that's okay.
Like, not a no sleep story.
Lacey
whatever.
doesn't have a... Yeah, don't send a story about how you were, like, you got stuck in line too long at the grocery store.
No, it all has to be creepy, scary stories.
Right. Like, you actually... The person listening to this, if you have had a supernatural experience, we want to know about it. We want to hear about it. And then we're going to read it or we'll air your audio clip on the show. And then we'll find a ghost story that's out there that might somehow relate.
Or we'll say something about the history of whatever place that you said that yours is from.
Exactly.
So,
if it's your house, we will go to your house.
Right. And investigate it personally.
Not going to do that.
Oh, we're not?
No, we're not.
Oh, man.
That'd be kind of fun, though. So anyways, this week we're going to kick things off with the Chicksands Priory. And that little bit that we read at the head of the show was the opener of I guess it was a newspaper back in the 80s. Maybe it still exists. I have no idea. I didn't go that far in my research. The Ampthill and Flitwick Times. And we're gonna take a look at Miss Berta Rosata and see what's going on with that, and then we'll talk a little bit more.
And there's
about,
like numerous other sightings of other entities or ghosts that have been at the Priory.
Well, so this is the thing about the Chicksands Priory is it goes back a long, long time. And
I mean, isn't it like the...
One of the first stories here is from like 1914.
Right.
And then there is, so it was
1914.
also... I see one in 1914 here.
Oh, you do? Okay.
Yeah.
I thought there was one further back, but maybe not. You're right.
So the Priory was located on an American Air Force base called Chicksands. Now it's called Chicksands. Now it's an English Air Force base. We turned it over to them because we didn't need to be in England anymore, I guess, because World War II ended a long time ago. And so...
But it was originally founded in 1150.
The Priory itself was
built, in 1150. Yes.
Yeah, it was founded in 1150. The incident with Rosata, according to this, occurred in the 1500s.
Correct.
So it was a nun named Rosata, and it says here in 1534, a Dr. Layton. Wasn't that the name of one of your video games?
Yeah, Professor Layton.
Oh, different guy. Discovered that two of the nuns were not barren. One of them had been made pregnant by a servant, the other a priest. I imagine it was probably the servant who then was killed. There might be some more info a little bit later.
Huh, okay.
So sightings of phantom ladies of the Priory, according to this article here, have been numerous over the last 80 years. Well, I guess 110 now.
In 1914, a maid dropped her tray in terror when she saw a tall, fascinating woman dressed in white flashing past her in a picture gallery. Ooh.
She dropped her whole tray?
Yeah, in terror.
In terror.
Which I would too. That would be super scary.
So for a while, during World War II and after World War II, the Priory was actually a housing unit for American officers and enlisted men on the Air Force Base. And so there were quite a few stories from them about seeing things. So it says here in 1954, an American officer sleeping in the same room woke in the early hour. I guess the same room as what? It doesn't say. Maybe as... I don't know. We'll just see. In the early hours of the morning to see a woman with, quote, a ruddy face and untidy hair wearing a dark dress with a white lace collar. When he switched on the light, the apparition floated to the foot of his bed and disappeared. Another airman reported being violently shaken from his sleep by a powerful ghostly hand. Oops, sorry.
But he was surprised to see a beautiful and youthful face smiling down at him. Suddenly, the vision shot away at great speed until it receded into a tiny pinpoint of light, accompanied by a hollow ring howl.
A hollow ringing howl.
Yeah.
Ooh, that's scary. It continues here. A long-haired woman dressed in black with a very old and wrinkled face has been seen to walk straight through the wall that divides the picture gallery and the King James room. Many people have reported feeling cold hands on their ankles and hearing the rustle of silk in these two rooms. And a female figure who was sighted outside the priory actually floated up into the air and glided through the wall of the first floor.
It is recorded that there was once a staircase there, demolished during their alterations in 1740.
So she was trying to go up.
So she was like residual.
Yeah.
Like a residual, like she's going up, like she is residual, like a time warp or something. Like
yeah,
she's
so she thinks that there's
stairs there.
Stairs there.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I wonder if they're not ghosts, but they're like...
residual energy, like...
there's some sort of like now I'm getting into Star Trek territory.
Right.
Some sort of rift in space-time.
Could be.
Where things happen.
We never know. That's the whole fun of this.
Right, exactly. Let me ask you this. So our youngest is a big fan of ghost adventures. Do you believe that all those little gadgets can actually detect stuff? Or now those guys are just totally...
I don't know. I mean,
right?
Everybody uses that EMF stuff. So I don't know. It records like what is it, magnitude, I don't know,
magnetic energy,
yeah, energies or something, magnetic energies, I don't know, because I've never done it, but I mean, it does have spikes and stuff. I don't know, I wish I knew more about that stuff. I don't, unfortunately. I think it's interesting. I should buy one. How about that?
That's a terrible idea. Alabama seems to like the Snapchat ghost finding filter.
Which that works pretty well. We found a lot.
There's a ton of ghosts in here, actually.
They all look the same.
Sometimes they're like standing on my desk. Sometimes they're like floating near my head. And then she gets freaked out. So it continues here. Some say that the legend of the unfortunate Berta... What?
Was a creation of an 18th century romantic.
That's not a name you hear much anymore, is it? Berta. Mm. Berta. Can you imagine if we named Alabama Berta, my mom, with her
accent,
Paraguayan accent? Berta. Aquí.
She'd probably.
So some say the legend of Berta was the creation of an 18th century romantic, that the hauntings are largely the product of the over-vivid imaginations of American servicemen. But this would not account for the strange case of the man who was literally scared to death at some time during the First World War. His body was found one morning just outside the priory, his features frozen into a look of indescribable horror, his black hair turned white as snow. That sounds more like a bad drug thing.
Do they have drugs like that?
They were probably way crazier than they are now.
You think so?
I mean, these days it's all like synthetics and stuff, but like...
I just feel like he wasn't seeing a woman. He was seeing something else to scare him that bad. Yeah,
right.
Like he's not just seeing some woman float by. Mm-hmm. That must have been something.
What if there was like a ghost of like a lady giving birth? Because that's pretty.
What the? Where are you going? Where are you taking us?
It's pretty messed up.
She didn't have the baby. She was walled up, so there is no baby.
But she was still pregnant.
Yeah, she probably passed away soon after she was walled up.
Oh.
Yeah.
I like this line here. It is certainly true that our dog has to make all the noise in the world when we're doing a podcast. It is certainly true that there were naughty going-ons here in the past.
Oh my goodness gracious.
Both monks and nuns were housed in the priory, which was founded, like you said, in 1150. So then there was this here. I took this from my trip journal, which is seemingly like a website that had been set up. It looked like something that was set up in like the early 2000s and just exists still.
Okay.
I'm pretty, and all these are like anonymous.
So people just wrote into what experiences that they had?
It's like Wikipedia. Anybody can edit it. Yeah, or anybody can like write in.
Okay.
So this here, I don't know who the author is, but he has a story about Chicksands, and he says, in 1957, the military transport plane I had taken from the States landed at RAF Burtonwood in England. Now, beginning a 3-year assignment at RAF Chicksands, a train ride away from Burtonwood. Chicksands is right outside the village of Shefford, close to the larger town of Bedford and 40 miles north of London, and has a long and interesting history. Chicksands had become an U.S. Air Force intelligence installation in the early 1950s. He says, when I was there, the Air Force occupied half of the base, the Royal Air Force, the Brits, the other half. In later years, the Air Force occupied the entire base. Now, Chicksands is named for Chicksands Priory, a 12th century Gilbertine monastery located within the perimeter of the base. The Royal Air Force acquired the priory in 1936 and established a signals gathering unit there. During World War II and throughout the Cold War, Chicksands was an important signals gathering station, part of the West Signals Intelligence Network. I'm assuming signals means like from
information, right?
The bad guys, right? Like,
right.
Did they intercept signals and try to decipher them or something?
Could be, yeah.
So it says here, in World War II, Chicksands station operators intercepted German Enigma transmissions that were then passed on to Bletchley Park cryptanalysts and eventually decoded, a feat that has been credited with shortening the war and saving many lives. And then in 1997, Chicksands has been the home of the Defense Intelligence and Security Center. It says here the Gilbertine Order housed both canons, which I think are priests, and nuns in 2 adjacent cloisters. It talks about the nun Rosata and kind of everything, what we've gone over. So he talks about his time there, and he says, one night during a barracks poker game, the door on one end of our hut opened by itself and closed. In the time it would take to walk from one end to the other, the door on the other end opened and closed by itself. He says it was probably a prank orchestrated by some guys known to be pranksters, but it sure put a damper on our game.
Oh, wow. So that freaked him out, huh?
A high-stakes poker game.
I wonder if they stopped playing.
Gone awry. They probably just took it outside or something.
Oh, you think so?
So here is the twist in this particular story, the reason why we're starting That's Not Scary with the Chicksands Priory, is that in 1986, a 7-year-old named Steve moved there because his dad was in the Air Force.
Correct.
I'm referring to myself.
Correct.
Yes. So
the debunker.
No, I'm not going to debunk this. Somebody else is debunking it. I'm going to tell you my sighting. Okay. Because here's the thing. I saw Rosata. I will fully admit that it could have been a shaft of light. A trick of the shadows.
Oh, come on.
So my story is this. When I was probably 10 years old, either 10 or 11, the priory on base, so it was RAF Chicksands, the Americans had ownership of it or whatever, and we moved there in 1986. I lived there for 4 years. It's a really small, really beautiful Air Force base, and I loved it. It was the kind of thing where if you have a bike, you had like complete lay of the land. Like, it was completely open, it was completely safe, it was a great place to grow up, especially in the 80s when everybody was like getting kidnapped here in America.
Right, exactly, because it's the 80s.
Or so we were led to believe. It was a really safe place. I could go out and do whatever I wanted. I can come back after dark and my parents wouldn't trip. So at Halloween time, I don't remember them doing this every year, but at Halloween time, they would the base would put on like a haunted house thing at the priory.
Like they would open the whole priory or just part of it?
It was like the lower area. Like there was, because when you go in, it's like big rooms that look very elaborate.
Okay.
And like we had done field trips there before, which is like a field trip. It's like a 10-minute walk away from the school that I was at. But like we did the whole tour of it before during the day, and everybody knew, even back then, they would tell the story of Rosata, and it was just really, really cool. But by the time I was like 10 or 11, it wasn't like the gimmick of it had sort of worn off. It was like, okay, big deal. Like,
because you'd already been there.
I've ridden my bike past here a million times. I've ridden
just used to
night. Like at night when I was by myself, that's when it got freaky. It was like, okay, this is scary as hell now.
Right.
But like, you know, otherwise you don't really think about it. Now, when I went to this Halloween gathering, it was packed. There was like tons of people there.
Okay.
So I show up and I'm waiting for, I was going to meet my friends there, and I'm waiting for my friends, and I just decided to go inside where all the festivities are. But there are people milling about outside. There's people inside. They had kept the lights to a minimum on the inside to enhance the haunted house nature of it.
Right. Yeah.
But they had like silly Halloween decorations up, and they had areas like you would go in a line with everybody else, and you're walking through it like any other haunted house that you go to now. You're sort of in a procession of people, and they would try to do things to scare you, but there were like little kids there, so like it wasn't
right.
Like,
so it's not like intense or anything.
What
it's
they
like...
did wasn't scary.
Right. Exactly.
I was not impressed. However, when I got there, my friends weren't there. And for some reason, it's funny because I remember, it's one of those memories that stuck with me so much that I don't really remember like what we ended up doing afterwards, or like where we went, or which of my friends I was waiting for. I just remember I was meeting some friends there. I show up and I get into line in order to like go through a haunted house because I was impatient. And I was sitting there, and I was just sort of like, you know, my eyes were wandering around. There was a couple people in front of me, a couple people behind me, but it was pretty dark. And we're in a pretty big room. I'm looking around, and I just sort of glance over into like a far corner of the room.
Right.
And it's really, really darkly lit.
Okay.
It was just obvious that they hadn't done anything in that area of the room. Like, they hadn't done anything in the room that I was in. It was all up ahead. We were all waiting to get to that point, like the entry point of like their thing. So I look, and in the corner, it was one of those moments where, and a lot of people have had it, you're looking at something and your brain just is trying to figure out what it's seeing.
Like what it's looking, like what you're looking at.
The closest thing I could think of is the times when most people have seen something crazy in their life. You know, whether it's you're one of the unfortunate souls on Unsolved Mysteries who stumbles upon a body, or you see a car crash.
Right.
You don't see that every day.
Right.
It's pretty shocking when it does happen, just because it doesn't happen.
And then you're just like, I can't believe I saw that.
Right.
Like
it stays with you.
Right. It's a core memory.
It's a core memory. You're from inside out. You're staring at it and you're like, would that just happen? So I look in the corner of this room, and I can't take my eyes off of what looked like a translucent, see-through lady, barely there, I guess hovering. Like, I still have that image in my head of kind of what it looked like. And I would just stare at it, and I was thinking to myself, is this part of the thing? Because this is really too good. But nobody's, I sort of looked, and like nobody else was looking at it.
Like you're the only one.
I was the only one who noticed it. And I didn't say anything because I was just transfixed.
So when you were looking at it, did it look back at you? Was there any...
I didn't notice details on a face.
Okay.
It had like, so there's a picture that we'll use for the thumbnail of either this on YouTube or like maybe even in the podcast. I don't know, because I haven't really figured out the graphics yet. But there's a picture that if you just probably Google image search Rosata,
it looked like that.
It looked like that. Somebody took a picture, and I think the picture is claimed to be real, but there's no way. That's a stage thing. And it kind of looked like that.
Okay.
Like it was just a white figure in the corner, but the details were very sketchy, and it was just kind of blurry. And I remember staring at it, and I couldn't really figure out what the hell I was looking at, but it clearly looked like what everybody thinks a ghost looks like.
Right.
And here's the thing, it was one of those things where going into it, I would understand if this happened because when I was a kid, I had an awareness of the Priory, but I was so used to it that the idea that I have so many people around me, so much is going on, I'm not freaked out. I wasn't scared going into the situation at all. I was not scared. I wasn't thinking about, oh, I might see a ghost tonight. I was like, I want to hang out with my friends and ride our bikes around in the middle of the night and maybe get some candy.
Were you like even scared when you saw it? Or were you just still trying to figure out like what it is?
I didn't put it together that like it was that I thought it was a ghost. Until like it was done.
Till it was over.
Because I was just trying to process what it was.
What you were looking at.
Yeah.
And did it like just, did it just evaporate or did you just keep going in the line and then it just went out of your vision? Or
I believe I stared at it for a while and then.
And it never moved.
The line started to move. No, it never moved. The line it was very still. The line started to move, and I moved with it, and I sort of put my head down, and I didn't look back.
You didn't look over again?
No, because I didn't want it to, like, attack.
You're like, no eye contact.
Right, exactly.
Like, I see you.
Yeah.
But I'm going to act like I don't see you.
Exactly.
So you can't attack me.
Yeah.
And there's all these people around.
Yeah, I didn't want it to get worse.
So when your friends did end up showing up, did you tell them?
I don't think I did.
You didn't? Like, you didn't want to go back and look and see if you could find it? Or
No.
No, you were like, okay, I'm cool.
No, I think it just sat with me for a while.
Oh, okay.
I think it just sat with me. I think I just found my friends. I don't remember I don't remember which friends it was. I had like 2 sets of friends because it was an Air Force base and people would sort of cycle through. So it's like David Long was my best friend for like the first year, and then he left, and then I had another best friend. So I don't remember who it was that I would have told. But the funny thing is, up until like 6 months ago or a couple months ago, I didn't realize that my sister had seen Rosata as well.
No way.
Well, you remember she were there when she told us.
Yeah, I guess so, huh?
I forget her story.
I don't remember her story.
I forget her story.
I guess we'll have to have, I don't know if she told us. Maybe she said she was going to send it to us.
Yeah, maybe.
Because if we both don't remember, then she didn't tell us.
No, she told us. It was just a while ago.
Oh.
And I was shocked that like I had never known that from her.
Yeah,
that I never got that info from her.
I wonder if there's like a lot more people that have seen her than what is reported. Like if you guys both, saw her. Yeah. There has to be like tons of people out there that.
I think her and her friends were like walking by the Priory or something, and I don't know. I think that's what it was.
Well, we'll have to update that.
So I was doing a little bit more research, and there is a wrinkle here, which is kind of interesting. So this is from the Penguin Book of Ghosts, Haunted England, by Jacqueline Simpson and Jennifer Westwood. Does your computer die?
Yeah, it's like weird.
So this entry on the chick, you're just going to be without a computer.
There we go.
Oh, there it is. Good
there we go. Hello.
Well done. So it says this. The house still known as Chicksands Priory was originally a foundation of the comparatively rare Gilbertine order. Dissolved with other religious houses in the reign of Henry VIII, in 1587 it became the property of the Osborne family and the birthplace of Dorothy Osborne, writer of the celebrated Osborne Letters. Have you heard of the Osborne Letters?
No.
Neither have
Her diplomat husband, Sir William Temple.
Sir William Temple. So it says here, the remains of the Priory, which reminded John Byng,
who came to visit in 1791.
I don't know what this
nothing
means.
So much as a diary.
It says dairy.
Oh.
I don't know what that means, though.
Why did I say diary? Because I think that sounds more right than
Because that sounds more correct. That's what I thought when I first read it, too.
And I was like, oops.
As a diary. I don't know. Anyways, it was sold to the British government in 1939, and then it was made into an Air Force camp. So it says this here. To make up for this, they are now said to be haunted by the ghost of the nun Rosata, walled up alive and still walking here in search of her lover. It says this. The story was connected with a plaque, and I think I remember seeing the plaque. It was still there, I think. It says the story was connected with a plaque in the remaining cloister on which the inscription reads, Moribus ornata jacet, hic bona Berta Rosata. Now, this has been translated as, by virtues guarded and by manners graced, here, alas, is fair Rosata placed. Now, the problem with this is a historical consultant, according to this book, who examined the plaque, said he knew of no medieval example of the name Rosata.
Okay.
And he suggested that the epitaph was an 18th century invention added by one of the Osborne family to give a suitably Gothic touch to Chicksands.
Okay, let me stop you there. So he's saying that it's just like the Osborne family just made it up, right? But then how would there be sightings? That's where I'm at.
Well, if the Osborne family made it up, maybe the story just got passed down and it explains ghost sightings as a flare-up of the imagination. Maybe that was mine. Maybe it was just a flare-up of my imagination.
Oh, but it only happened there. Like you just had your imagination flare up just there.
Well, because I knew that it had the story behind it.
That's true. You did say
now,
that.
if it started there and all the examples of ghost sightings came after they invented this, maybe just to fuck with like the people who used to clean the priory, they were like, hey, this place is haunted. Look at this plaque right here. It's totally got Rosata on it. She's dead in there.
What the heck? You think so?
And then they started seeing stuff. That lady with the tray saw something, and the word gets passed down.
I don't believe that.
From person to person to person to person. So it says here, Betty Puttick, in Ghosts of Bedfordshire, wonders if it was inspired by the name of the founder of the priory, Rose de Beauchamp of Bedford Castle. As she tells Rosata's story as a tale of forbidden romance between a nun and a canon. Let's see here. Inevitably,
Beecham.
Beecham. Is it
Yeah,
Beecham?
Beecham.
Is it Beecham?
Beecham.
I like Beauchamp. So it says here, yeah, he was beheaded. She was walled up to her neck and forced to watch him die. It says how long this story has been in circulation is uncertain, but Roger Ward in Legend and Lore gives a comparatively early reference, and it mentions the lady who worked there in 1914 or 15. So, yeah, I don't know. It goes on to talk about people. Let's see here. There is, in the early 1950s, George Inskip, head gardener at the Priory for 30 years, reported seeing a dark grayish shape come up the path outside the greenhouse where he was tending the vines. Thinking it was someone coming to see him, he went outside, but there was no one there. He says, whatever I saw was wearing a cowl and came straight up the path. If it was a ghost, I don't know, but I'll never forget it. So he saw somebody, seemingly, was that like in the middle of the day? It seems like it was during the day.
Seems like it. That's what it sounds like.
It says, though the paranormal activity at Chicksands has evidently been varied, there is nothing conclusive to link any of the alleged sightings with the legend of Rosata, the walled up nun. Yeah.
I don't know. I think that you can't debunk this one. I think this is, I mean, you literally saw it with your
I
own
definitely
eyes.
saw something.
Yeah, with your own eyes, and I think that it's true.
Mm-hmm. You think so? This one passes muster?
Yes.
All right.
I do.
Fair enough. Well, yeah, we want to hear your guys' stories.
Yeah, and we can you can either send in an audio file or email us at the thatsnotscarypod at gmail.com.
That's right. And we'll be back. We'll probably be back in a couple weeks because we have to like compile the other stories and do more research with more of these. So if you like it, leave us like a review on iTunes or whatever they're calling that now, Apple Podcasts, and subscribe.
Yep.
And do the same on YouTube. We're gonna make this available on YouTube. We're not gonna do like video of us. It's gonna be like creepy footage of. I actually have a ton of home movies of
the Priory and Chicksands,
of me like riding my bike in front of it. So like I'll do that like on super creepy slow motion,
black and white, so that it makes it look like this poor child is in danger. But it's okay. It's just you. It's just me. I'm fine. You made it through the 80s. Right. Just when you're looking at the footage, remember, that's not scary. That's not scary.